Welcome back to Light Talk, where everyday people can share their own unique spiritual journey stories, including paranormal and supernaturals. If you have a story you have to share, please email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com and give your attention to yourself and share your stories. Thanks. And while we're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And now let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to hand the mic over. So go ahead and introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Dana. I'm Wendy Rose Williams, and I am a past life energy healer. And I have the gift and the fun of helping people release energy that's not serving them anymore. And often it shows up as chronic pain, both physical and emotional, anxiety, depression, or just feeling stuck. And when we're able to release that energy that's not serving us, what a difference. Can feel so much happier, so much healthier, and that life has a beautiful purpose. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. And yeah, you have a lot of experiences that pertains to that. So can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about those
Absolutely.
experiences? Yeah.
Absolutely. I had two near-death experiences in a couple of days apart in from each other back in 1997 when I was newly pregnant with my youngest daughter, and that really started to open the gateways and just started to take away that veil of amnesia. My belief is that we choose where and when we're going to incarnate, and we come in with that veil for good reasons, for multiple reasons, but boy, it can sure make it difficult when we just don't really remember what life is really about, and when we don't remember how wonderfully supported we are by the divine, and that wisdom and love is just there for us, and how to tune into that. So that's what the near-death experiences really did for me, and the spiritual awakening, and how I got to this amazing, wonderful second career as a past life energy healer, because I started off as an MBA, and worked in business development for most of my career. And what happened was in 2010, I was introduced to a book called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And Dana, I wasn't even a chapter into that book. And it's like, oh, this is right. This is what I've been missing. This is
Uh,
it. I was just so thrilled to be hearing his depiction of what had happened with his clients, which had been very surprising to him. Dr. Michael Newton was a psychotherapist, and he didn't have any interest or belief in past lives. It was actually a patient that ended up taking him there. And he then ended up doing a longitudinal study of 30 plus years of his career of 7,000 plus patients, and what came up for them in the area of past life regression and what he termed life between lives, which was a 4 hour, very deep, very restful, marvelous spiritual regression technique that he came up with to help people go back to the light, go back on home, and remember all kinds of amazing things about their lives, why we're here, why we chose the body, why we chose the parents, the time and place of our birth, and just all these different things, life lessons, life purpose, all these things that we're working on. And he then wrote those after he retired into Journey of Souls. So the minute I started reading the book, it's like, oh, I have to go for a Life Between Lives session. This just sounds fascinating. And you needed to go for a past life regression first. So I set that as my goal, and I did get to go for my first past life regression. It was November of 2011. And Dana, it just changed everything. And
yeah.
I was not this great candidate. And the therapist was wonderful as we talked it through and, planned the session a bit by phone and by email. And she said, well, you don't know how to meditate. It's like you don't have any spiritual practice. We just were going through all these different things. And I was very very, very anxious, very stressed, and just too busy, overwhelmed, had been a single working mother for years with two wonderful daughters. And we just agreed, okay, we're just going to put this down to being an interesting experiment and see what happens at my first session. And am I able to follow her direction and relax and actually have the experiences? And oh my gosh, I was so fortunate, Dana, because I turned out to be a great subject once we really, really got started. And I was able
Nice.
to, because I just felt comfortable with her. And I knew that it's a free will choice if you're going to follow the suggestions, the recommendations of your
Mhm.
hypnotherapist to help you. If there's anything you don't like, that's absolutely fine. Because again, you've got your free will.
Right.
And so it was incredible because in those 2 hours, we went back and we healed various things earlier in this lifetime, because it's not just about your literal past lives, but also there might be scenes in this lifetime.
Right, right. And we all have those as our inner child and everything else to clean up our,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So that is really something
Exactly.
to work on first so you can move back. Yeah, I could see that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So we cleaned up several of those scenes, and just being able to understand them as an adult and to just heal and release some of that was a big deal. And then we went back to not just one, but to two past lives, to my surprise. And more detail continued to fill in afterwards, because she gave me the great suggestion of, just relax. At the end of the day, I had taken the whole day off work to just, really give that session give it its due.
Yeah.
And just as I told about it and had dreams that night, and more and more information just flowed in. So that's a really important thing to understand too, because it's not like you have just the session time. And also, once I started to fill in the forms for her, because the questions are designed to just bring out that healing energy for you before you even get there, before you even, get in the door. And I
Yeah,
could
wow.
feel some lifting up and healing and releasing. So there's the pre-session experiences and benefit that can come up, and then of course what happens during the actual session itself, and then what happens after the session. So it's really our own higher self and guides that are just bringing forth what comes up. Because many of us have had hundreds, if not thousands, of past life experiences on planet, off planet, and in other dimensions, because our souls are eternal and are just looking to have experiences, have adventures, to progress. So, therefore we go through a lot of different things.
Mhm.
And just being able to start to put those pieces together more and more was a really big deal. So she started to, just bring me back to the present moment and come back to reality about 15 minutes before our 2 hours was up. And as we were sitting there, debriefing the session, she asked me how I felt. And I just looked at her, in astonishment, and I said, I don't feel anxious anymore. I do not have anxiety anymore, because I can just see the bigger picture. And I don't feel all the pressure of this perfectionism that I had felt until then. And it's like I could finally draw a breath. It was just a really, really big deal to feel like the freedom. And I felt so much
Yeah.
more lighter and brighter, but I also felt more in my body and more grounded and more on the planet. And both those things could be true at the same time. So it
Wow.
was just really, really wonderful. And then we debriefed the particulars of what I saw in those two past lives.
That's amazing. So did you have a lot of experiences that you needed to clean up in this life and in the
Uh,
past life, or was it more in a certain life?
I had quite a few in this lifetime to let go of and clean up. So we just kind of like opened that doorway and starting doing that. We went back to when I was 12 and had gone through something really challenging with what felt like a really big abandonment, a parental abandonment. And we went through that, and more understood why that had happened, and
Yeah.
processed that. And then we went back to preschool days, and I released some fear and anxiety from that time period. So it really was so incredibly, it was life changing. I was going to say helpful. I'm like, no, it's way beyond helpful. It truly was life changing.
Yeah.
So at at the end of that very first session, I asked her, I said, okay, get your calendar out. Because again, this was back in 2011. So paper calendars for more people.
Yep.
I said, I'm ready to schedule my life between lives with you. I want to come back and do that bigger session, that more comprehensive session. And I told her, I said, I want to book it for a year from now. And I wasn't sure why, but I just knew some things needed to happen in the meantime, and that would be the right timing for me. And what did happen, many things happened in that year, including I did go take a formal course in how to meditate, and that made it, really helpful to be able to just follow. It's like a guided visualization, is kind of the
Right.
best way I can explain for someone that's never had hypnotherapy. Again, you've got your free will, and if you're being guided to go somewhere or have an experience, and it's very open-ended. It's not like you're being told, I want you to go back to the third time when you were a maid, because I know you're so tired of having done that. What the prompt that I use with clients is to go to the time and place with the most uplift and healing and information for your life today. So it's very practical, but it's also open-ended. And that just, frees up people. Do
Yeah.
they go earlier in this lifetime, or do they go directly into a past life or past lives? And as you mentioned, Dana, at the beginning, that inner child healing, it's a really big deal. And we're just so much more um, healed and happy and accepting of ourselves. I think there's so much more compassion and self-love and self-respect when we're able to uh, heal our inner child as well as our shadow self. Shadow meaning those parts of us we don't like and that we want to just shove away because we don't know what to do with them, and we just don't know how to embrace that shadow. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of that type of healing that's going on during the sessions too. And we
Yeah.
also
I've noticed I've gotten rid of a little bit of all of that myself, and I do feel a lot different. I feel
well,
more
that's
lax and
wonderful.
a little more love within.
Yes, and that's just a
Yeah.
really big deal. And then when we're happier and just more content, more at peace with ourselves, it just radiates out to everyone around us.
Mhm.
And it's like the little things just, don't rock our boat so much, and we
Yeah.
just it just makes everything easier and happier in those relations with other people too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I still got a long ways to go, but I have noticed a change within me on how I react to things now.
Absolutely. And I think as we develop those skills, it just gets easier. And we're able to do it more naturally and find some new ways to continue to release what's not serving us. And
Yeah.
one of the things that came up via the two past lives that I saw, the therapist asked me a great question at the end based on, what I had described to her in the two past lives. And she said, how do you do with authority now? what's your relationship like with authority? And at first I started to kind of like blow her off. I just took it at like very surface level. I was like, oh, I don't have any issues with authority. I've never been arrested. I mean, that was literally how narrow my definition was. But when I really thought about it, I would get something in the mail. It could be as simple as getting the mail, and it didn't have to be like a court summons or a ticket. It didn't have to be anything like that, or something from the IRS you're not expecting,
Yeah.
that kind of makes anyone go, ooh, what's this? And it could
Right.
be as simple as a bank statement, something from the schools for my daughters. I mean, it was really, really big. And what had happened in those two past lives, the first one, I was this wealthy young woman. I was a banker's daughter, and it was in England. And I had snuck out because it was not supposed to be unchaperoned. And I had decided to go down to the market and just go purchase some cheeses for fun and just enjoy the thrill of being out on my own a little bit and going to that market where I'd been to, with my parents and with chaperones, etc. And what happens at the market is I see a gentleman stealing. And
Oh,
I knew the man very slightly. I believed he was out of work, and that I had heard my father saying that he had a sick wife, and he had a large family he had many children. And I just knew, there was no safety net at that time in place for people like that. This was several hundred years ago, and I just he had the bad luck to just the merchant noticed that he had stolen something and had started running, and the merchant is calling after him, and a bobby, a London policeman, a British bobby. And that's how I knew where I was, because I knew what a British bobby looked like. It helped me place
okay.
where I was. And the bobby saw me right there, and he said, which way did he go? You must have seen that man. There's a man running. He just stole something. Which way did he go? And it was such a decision for me, and I had to make it very quickly, because of course I'd been raised to respect authority. Here my father is a banker, and it's just the natural appropriate thing I had been taught to do was to always help the police, tell the truth to the police. But it wasn't right. What was going on wasn't right. There was a bigger need, and there was a bigger truth than this man being stopped from stealing food that his family desperately needed and
Eating.
didn't have a way to get. So I made the decision in the blink of an eye to help that man get away. And I flat out lied to the Bobby, and I told him, oh, I'm not sure. I didn't notice. I was so focused. And look, I picked out all these lovely cheeses. And oh, my bag's gotten really heavy. And my father is so and so. And he would really appreciate it if you would carry my bag for me and walk me home, because I
Oh
wasn't
my.
really supposed to be. So I just start flirting, and I'm like, throwing out my father's name because I knew he would recognize it, and just I'm distracting him. I'm trying to give this poor guy time to get away.
Get away.
And the police
Yeah.
kind of sighed, and he decided he chose it was better for him to help me, and he walked me home carrying my goods that I had purchased. So I mean, this was an issue with authority going on. The second past life was really shocking to me. It took me a bit to orient to, because first of all, when I tuned into it, I'm like, am I looking at someone else? What's going on here? Because I was so cold. My clothes were really tattered, and I could feel my hair was really grown out. I was so hungry, but I'd gotten used to it. I'd been so hungry for so long and thirsty, and I could see I was chained to the wall. I was actually in
Oh
prison,
no.
and I was man's body. And I
Mhm.
was probably to late 20s at that time. And the hypnotherapist was just helping, lead me through it. And she's like, you're okay now. Everything's going to be fine. Tell me, do you know how you got there? Do you know what you did or were accused of? And it was actually the Spanish Inquisition. And I had been a teacher, and I just loved books and knowledge and just the information that was contained there. Picture the days back before the internet. And I had been forced to go to one of those big public burnings of the books, these big shows of intimidation. And it just disturbed me so much
Oh,
to
I
see those
bet.
books. And I waited until I thought everyone was gone, and I took a couple books that they hadn't fully burned, and I rescued a couple books out of there. I also had been teaching people surreptitiously how to read and write, which was forbidden at the time because only the upper class was allowed to have this knowledge. And I mean, knowledge is power in so many ways. And that is one of the easiest ways to oppress people and the masses is by restricting what information and knowledge and education they have. I mean, that unfortunately is still done today. In certain countries, girls, women are not allowed to learn, or certain classes of people are not allowed to learn. It's not easy for them to get an education. So I had already been on the watch list, but didn't know it for having been rumors that I was teaching people to read and write. And then once I
Mm.
took those books out of it, was it. I was put into prison, and I was there for several years. And thankfully, the hypnotherapist had time to like lead me through, that lifetime, and
Yeah.
not leave me there, because you always want to get the person to a good conclusion with what happened so that they can get some closure and feel good about it. And she led me through, and I was able to see that I eventually was released, and I did regain my health fully, because I had been young and healthy when I had been in prison. So I had made it on through. And she
Nice.
asked me very carefully, did you return to teaching people, or was it just too risky? No judgment if you never felt comfortable doing that again. It's like, oh, I doubled down. But I got smarter about how I did it, and just who I would choose to teach. And I just really tuned into my intuition and made sure it wasn't a trap. So
That would have been
uh,
really
you
tough and hard. Yeah.
right. So you can see why her natural question at the end of these two
Yeah.
these two past lives was, Wendy, what's your relationship like with authority now? So it just really helped free me up from it. And it was just an incredible experience. So I went back for the Life Between Lives a year later. And Dana, I got so much information, and you're speaking as your own higher self. You're speaking as your soul. You're speaking as your guides. It's just amazing. It can be ascended masters, angels, God, whoever you believe in and is most important to you. It's just amazing who can come through in the sessions, and to hear that recording in your own voice, because it's not a psychic reading. It's not like a past life reading where the therapist is saying, oh, this happened to you, and then this happened, and this happened. Let's clean that up. I mean, yes, they're helping you heal and release it, but it is coming through you.
You.
And that is just so empowering and so freeing to be able to tap into that level of our super conscious, is the term Dolores Cannon, who created quantum healing hypnotherapy, came up with, versus subconscious or unconscious. She came up with the term super conscious, which I think is very accurate for what we're tapping into during the sessions. So I actually took my recording from the Life Between Lives and I transcribed it. I typed it up because it was
Oh, wow.
easier to type it and read it versus, trying to listen to the recording again and again. I had 65 pages of information from that 4 hour session of things that I had not really
Wow.
remembered in this lifetime that were so helpful to me. It improved relationships and improved my health. It changed my career over time pretty quickly. Just, so many things I changed from that. So that was within a year. I had that first past life regression and then the first life between lives. And then the next summer, I had a quantum healing hypnotherapy with a different type of therapist, again for past life regression. But the first two had been with a Michael Newton therapist. And then I had two more the next summer with that same quantum healing therapist. At the end of the third session with her, she said to me, "You really need to listen to your recording because this is fascinating." And she said, "I just haven't seen this happen before." She said, "You're not only completely fluid at this point, speaking as your higher self and just really, really well connected, as well as with your guides, but you're also telling me as the therapist what to do, and you're coaching me and saying, oh, ask her more about this, or no, you can let that go,
Oh,
that's
my
not pertinent."
goodness.
And I listened to it and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was a very experienced, qualified PhD hypnotherapist that had done, many of these sessions. And I'm like, wow. But everything I'd said to her was really accurate. And she said, have you considered training for this? So that's what just made it kind of bubble up. And I then did shortly after I did find the perfect person to train with, and it just all started from there. It's like I want to be able to share this with people because it's been so beneficial for me.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about writing a book on that or?
I've written three, and they
Okay.
include multiple different sessions. So yes,
Sweet.
so the very
Yes.
first one we did, it was a client session of a gentleman. It was a former boyfriend who actually woke me up spiritually, regression healing one, the huntsman, the Lord High Mayor, and the World War II soldier. And he had actually found the first therapist for me, and he was the person who told me about a Journey of Soul. So it was just kind
Wow.
of perfect, came full circle. And then I became his therapist to help him release some really major pain because he'd been a professional athlete and he'd broken his neck.
Oh,
So he was
crumbs.
a lot of pain post surgery, and he wanted to release that. And we found two lifetimes of origin because that's the concept. Is you go back to, as I said, you give that general prompt. Go to the time and place with the most healing and information and uplift for your life today. And then he did go back to those two lifetimes where he hadn't forgiven people who had harmed him. So he was still carrying that unforgiving energy, that anger, that grudge, that feeling of you're going to betray me, that sort
Hmm.
of energy was giving him all this pain, in his neck and in his back. So we were able to release it. It was a really, really big deal. And then he kindly encouraged me to write it as a book, of course, blinded his identity. And with his
Right.
permission, I wrote this book.
Wow. That is so awesome. So, so awesome. Wow. And I know you have a lot more stories to say. I mean, we haven't even started with your stories. So, I would like to have you on again if you wouldn't mind.
Love to come back. I'd be happy to do a recap of the near death experience another
Mhm.
time, just how that opened my communication with the divine. I was 36 at the time, and it really changed everything. Mhm. So I'd love to come
Yeah.
back and share that at the time, Dana. Thank you. Thank you
Awesome.
for the
Yeah.
kind.
No, not a problem. Hey, I'd love to have you back. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Oh, so I think this will be a good time to kind of close it up for this time. So thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciated it. And I'm sure my guests
Oh,
have.
my pleasure.
And if anyone out there has any stories you would like to share and to come on the show and be yourself and tell your supernatural or paranormal stories, I'd love to have you on. Email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com. And don't forget to click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. And we will talk with everybody next time. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye for now.